and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavor show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Okay, so today we're diving into a morning that starts, well, let's just say it's absolute chaos for our main characters. It's 7:45 a.m., they've got killer hangovers, and this sudden grim realization hits them. You're just old and can't handle it anymore. That's straight from the source. You're late, the kids are sorted somehow, but honestly, your life feels like it's about to collapse.
Yeah, it's that immediate, messy fallout. You know, we talk about big crises, but these sources, they give such a vivid snapshot of human behavior under pressure. Like the dual stress of just managing the house and this bigger battle for sort of social acceptance.
That's exactly what we're digging into today. We've got these sources that really shine a light on desperation, whether it's, desperately needing reliable help on the farm or desperately needing people to see you as something other than a problem.
Right.
And we'll pull out those surprising little strategies people use, like using your underage nephew to sort things out or trying to navigate a very wary village committee.
And it starts purely with survival, doesn't it? Helen and Tom, just the immediate, raw, personal suffering that completely throws their day off track.
And the first little insight isn't even about the suffering itself, but how Tom copes using this kind of dark humor. He brings Helen the standard cure coffee, paracetamol, but he apparently makes it very clear he's enjoying this, actually enjoying her misery.
It's fascinating, that psychological angle Tom takes. He's kind of shifting the focus, isn't he? He drops that line about heading out but being back at 4 because social services are coming to discuss the neglect and trauma to my mental health.
Okay, hang on. Is that really humorous cruelty? Or is it more like defensive? Is he actually enjoying her pain? Or is he using that over-the-top social services comment to maybe feel a bit less guilty about the state they're both in?
I think it's probably a bit of both, and that's why the line hits so hard. By throwing around words like neglect and trauma, he's kind of preemptively downplaying their actual failure that morning.
Yeah.
It's a way to joke about the chaos, make it theatrical so he can step away and recover while she's left dealing with it.
And dealing with it means the winter grains. This wasn't just being a bit late. The hangover had real consequences for Bridge Farm. It really shows how thin their daily management structure is.
Absolutely. Helen was supposed to be on it early, but the source actually details her trying and failing to even walk through the dairy. She couldn't handle the smell of the bee blue cheese.
Oh, that detail is just perfect. The cheese.
It's more than just funny, though. It's almost symbolic, isn't it? Rejecting her own livelihood, the very thing the farm produces, her professional pride, is suddenly making her physically sick. It tells you instantly that the personal failure has led to, complete professional shutdown.
A very real, very physical check. But being shut down is a huge problem because they've got this big logistical challenge looming, the Scotland trip. That holiday paid for with Grant's money. And they still don't have reliable cover for the farm. They need someone for the grunt work, the donkey work.
Yeah, and the staffing problem is critical because their usual backup, Will, he's completely swamped. The sources mention the week's being and 2 or 3 different shoots. That detail matters because it shows how busy everyone is. They can only get Will for light duties, like veg deliveries, not the heavy lifting.
So with that farm problem unsolved, Helen's focus shifts to the family side of things, and she floats this idea. Well, it shows how desperate, tired parents can get.
Right, the old temptation to just bend the rules. Helen suggests lying to the school, saying Henry and Jack are off sick so they can go on the trip for the, quote, educational Scottish castle. It's that classic short-term fix, isn't it? Convenience over the hassle of finding proper childcare, even if it feels a bit dodgy.
But Tom, even after his dark jokes earlier, actually pulls back. He vetoes it straight away.
Hey.
But why? Not because it's wrong, but because of the social risk. He's worried that with so many going, someone would report you. He knows their standing in the community is fragile. That fear of judgment is stronger than the fear of being short-staffed.
And that fear, that social calculus, it sets up this really surprising moment because the kid they were thinking of lying about, Henry, he's the one who comes through with this. Well, this incredibly mature observation.
Henry turns down the offer to join them, even after putting up with his parents' messy evening. He doesn't want the educational Scottish castle, and his reason. Living with 7 people is a strain, and they all need space.
I mean, that's genuinely insightful for his age. What does that tell you about the atmosphere at Bridge Farm? It suggests Henry gets the emotional toll of it all, the overcrowding. He's basically opting out of the chaos his parents created, choosing a smart move, self-preservation, and a bit of spoiling.
He's pretty much saying, you guys go sort yourselves out. Me and Jack will have a nice, quiet, stress-free break with Granny and Granddad who actually spoil us.
Introducing the Archer's Mug, where elegance meets everyday comfort. Crafted from premium white ceramic, designed with vibrant peekaboo colors inside, simple, modern, and stylish. Start your day the Archer's way, with warmth, familiarity, and the comfort of voices you've come to love. As the stories unfold on the Archers, let this mug become part of your daily ritual, a small reminder of life in Ambridge. Practical for every home, dishwasher and microwave safe. Available in 2 sizes, 11 ounces and 15 ounces, designed to fit your lifestyle. Enjoy your favorite drink in a mug that connects you to Britain's most beloved countryside story, The Archers. For more information, and to order your very own The Archer's mug, follow the link below and make it part of your daily routine.
He sees their place as the calm escape road from the pressure cooker back home.
The maturity is really something. And right after showing this knack for managing resources, emotional and physical space, he then pivots and offers a solution to their professional crisis.
Exactly. While doing his history homework, like the calmest thing imaginable in that house, he drops the name. The unlikely candidate for farm cover, George Grundy.
George Grundy. Wow! Instantly, the stakes jump from just a staffing issue to this deep, community moral question. Henry pitches it purely on practical terms. How about someone who knows the farm? It's totally available, and you could probably get cheap.
Okay, but I have to jump in here. Is Henry really being mature, or is he just being cynical? He's basically suggesting they use a known community outcast because he's desperate and affordable. Doesn't that say more about how desperate Tom and Helen are, rather than highlighting Henry's brilliant maturity?
That's a really fair point. It does highlight the pragmatism of survival, maybe. Henry's not making a moral case, he's making an efficiency case. But the fact the adults instantly feel the weight of it, that shared thought, I couldn't possibly, could we? That shows necessity is rubbing right up against this deep-seated community unease, reputation versus cheap labor.
And that tightrope they're on need versus judgment, it's not happening in isolation. It connects directly to what George Grundy himself is doing, trying to fight his way back into the community's good graces.
Oh.
Which brings us neatly to George's story.
Yes. We shift from the home chaos to the social exile. George is actively trying to re-engage, and we see it start with this really tense, very brief encounter in the shop with Susan.
He's so abrupt, almost like he desperately wants to be invisible. He just wants to pay for these bits and go. The sources even give us the specifics. Jam flavored with apple juice, total £6.20. And he's so keen to leave. When he's short on 20p coins, he tells Susan, just take 10s and 5s, whatever, he just wants out.
That reluctance to even have a tiny social interaction really underlines his shame, his discomfort. But it's that very interaction that leads Susan to ask after him, and George reveals how he's feeling. His motivation is just heartbreakingly simple. He says he's just sitting around at home going nuts and insists he's not the sitting around kind.
That lack of structure is clearly destroying him. He knows the problem isn't just boredom, it's being rejected. He spells it out. Nobody wants to hire him. So volunteering, that's his only path back to having some purpose.
And his strategy for getting back in, it's all about being seen. He hopes that if folk could get used to seeing me around the village, maybe they'd realize I'm not a whatever they think I am. It's a deliberate choice, using humble, everyday work stocking shelves, dealing with people as a kind of public penance, a way to rebuild trust. He knows he can't do it hiding away.
In Susan's reaction, his Nana's reaction, it's immediate, full of emotion. She sees that basic human need for acceptance, for purpose, underneath all the shame. She calls him an asset, says she's happy to train him, and just brushes off his worry that Jim and Sabrina, the other managers, wouldn't want him there.
She gives him that validation he desperately needs. But then her actions immediately shift into this high-speed, really determined bit of local politicking. She knows if she hesitates, the committee and all their doubts will probably squash the idea.
Susan gives us a masterclass in navigating small community structures when you're determined. She got Alan's okay first, though, conveniently. Alan's not directly involved with the shop. Then she spoke to Jim, caught Sabrina, who just happened to pop in for a loaf, and texted Neville. fast.
It's textbook Swift lobbying, isn't it? Using personal connections and just pure momentum to get a majority before anyone can really sit down and think too hard about the downsides. She's basically using the village's politeness, their reluctance to argue with her, Susan Carter, the matriarch.
But the sources are good here. They note the actual feeling on the committee. They weren't exactly enthusiastic, but crucially, they were prepared to give it a shot. That preparedness is key. They're bending to Susan's will, not necessarily buying into George's redemption arc.
And Susan, sensing that hesitation, moves decisively. She called George just 20 minutes before telling Neil, and she's already scheduled him for training the very next morning. No time for second thoughts. She locks it down because she knows that window for community forgiveness or even tolerance can slam shut really quickly.
And locking it down is what sparks the big conflict with Neil. He immediately steps in as the voice of skepticism, the rational counterpoint that maybe the rest of the committee was too polite to really push.
Neil voices that deep-seated distrust, doesn't he? He's worried, and you can see why, about George manipulating Susan again. He brings up the past, the ring business. For Neil, George's history is a strong predictor of his future behavior.
It lays bare this really critical tension within the family. Neil just can't get past the idea that George treats us both like muck, and that he wants a favor. He's questioning the motive. What does George really get out of volunteering if it's unpaid? Neil smells manipulation, fearing Susan's grandmotherly feelings are blinding her.
It's that classic clash, rational caution versus deep family loyalty. Neil probably sees the unpaid work not as genuine remorse, but as a strategic foothold back into the family's good graces, maybe setting up a bigger ask down the line.
But Susan digs in. For her, George facing people he'd probably rather not see, enduring that cold shoulder from the community, is actually an act of bravery. She pulls rank, essentially. I'm not asking for your permission, this is happening, and that's that. She's choosing to prioritize George's chance at social recovery over Neil's very understandable concerns.
She gets that for George. Right now, the currency isn't pounds and pence, it's reputation. If he can stick it out in the shop under everyone's bays, maybe he can start rebuilding.
So, if we tie these two threads together, the hangover crisis and the social recovery crisis, what's the big picture this deep dive paints for us?
Well, we've seen these two parallel journeys of recovery, haven't we? On one hand, you've got the personal recovery, Helen and Tom needing to physically get over the night before and solve this urgent staffing issue. And necessity, prompted by Henry's surprisingly sharp insight, points them towards the community's outcast. Practical need overriding prejudice, maybe.
And on the other side, you have the fight for social recovery. George actively trying to climb out of this hole of judgment, trying to get back into the village flow through very visible, very humble work at the shop. And interestingly, the farm's needs and George's needs might just line up here, but only because Susan forced the issue, basically overriding a lot of reluctance.
The sources really show how upheaval, whether it's a self-inflicted hangover or a ruined reputation, forces a kind of painful humility. You end up needing the very people or situations you'd normally avoid. Henry needing his grandparents for peace, Tom and Helen possibly needing George for work, and George absolutely needing his grandmother for this chance.
It seems like visibility becomes the key currency for rehabilitation here. George has to be seen doing ordinary, unglamorous work to try and counter years of suspicion.
Which leaves us with a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. Given all that deep skepticism, especially from someone close like Neil, how effective can that kind of visible self-imposed structure like volunteering actually be? Can just showing up day after day, facing the judgment, really undo years of community distrust? Or does it just create new chances for people to find fault, for resentment to build?
That's a really powerful final thought. The road back is rarely straightforward. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
So, what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around.
So, what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the archers. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
and- kind of. Yep. That's,
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
yep. That's the bull bar. That's,
This one.
yep. That's.
Haley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline. I mean,
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever